100 Band 9 words and phrases for IELTS Writing Task 2.
Topic: Environment.
Environmental issues.
1. Climate change mitigation.
1. Climate change mitigation.
Explanation. Efforts to reduce the impact of climate change by reducing greenhouse gas emissions or adapting to its effects.
Synonyms: climate change reduction strategies, global warming mitigation measures, emissions reduction initiatives. Example sentences.
1. To mitigate climate change, governments must implement policies that promote renewable energy and reduce carbon emissions.
2. The company's goal is to mitigate the impact of climate change through sustainable practices and reducing waste.
3. Mitigating climate change requires a global effort to transition to clean energy sources.
2. Renewable energy sources.
2. Renewable energy sources.
Explanation: energy generated from natural resources that can be replenished over time, such as solar, wind, hydro, or geothermal power.
Synonyms: alternative energy sources, clean energy options, sustainable power generation.
Example sentences. 1. The country is investing in renewable energy sources to reduce its reliance on fossil fuels and mitigate climate change.
2. Renewable energy sources like solar and wind power are becoming increasingly cost competitive with traditional fossil fuels.
3. The city's goal is to generate 50% of its electricity from renewable energy sources by 2030.
3. Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs.
3. Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs.
Explanation: a set of 17 goals established by the United Nations to achieve sustainable development and eradicate poverty.
Synonyms: global development objectives, sustainable development targets, international development goals. Example sentences.
1. The company's sustainability strategy aligns with the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs.
2. Achieving the Sustainable Development Goals requires a global effort to address poverty, inequality, and climate change.
3. The organization's goal is to contribute to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals by promoting education, equality, and environmental protection.
4. Environmental degradation.
Environmental degradation.
Explanation: the deterioration or destruction of the natural environment due to human activities, such as pollution, habitat destruction, or overexploitation of resources.
Synonyms: environmental damage, ecological degradation, natural resource depletion.
Example sentences. 1. Deforestation and pollution are leading causes of environmental degradation in many countries.
2. Climate change is accelerating environmental degradation, causing more frequent and severe natural disasters.
3. The company's mission is to prevent environmental degradation by promoting sustainable practices and reducing waste.
5. Ecological imbalance.
Ecological imbalance.
Explanation: a state where the natural balance or equilibrium in an ecosystem is disrupted, often leading to negative consequences such as loss of biodiversity or ecosystem collapse.
Synonyms: ecosystem disruption, environmental imbalance, natural system disturbance.
Example sentences.
1. The introduction of invasive species can cause ecological imbalance, threatening native species and ecosystems.
2. Climate change is disrupting ecological balances, leading to more frequent and severe natural disasters.
3. The organization's goal is to restore ecological balance by preserving habitats and promoting biodiversity conservation.
6. Deforestation and land clearance.
Deforestation and land clearance.
Explanation: the removal or destruction of forests or vegetation, often for agriculture, urbanization, or infrastructure development, which can lead to environmental degradation and loss of biodiversity.
Synonyms: forest clearance, land use changes, vegetation destruction.
Example sentences. 1. Deforestation and land clearance are leading causes of environmental degradation in many tropical regions.
2. The government's policy is to promote sustainable forest management and prevent deforestation and land clearance.
3. The organization's goal is to restore forests and promote reforestation efforts to preserve biodiversity.
7. Pollution control measures.
Pollution control measures.
Explanation: strategies or technologies implemented to reduce, minimize, or eliminate pollution from various sources, such as air, water, or soil pollution.
Synonyms: environmental protection measures, emissions reduction initiatives, waste management strategies. Example sentences.
1. The company's goal is to implement pollution control measures to reduce its environmental impact.
2. Governments must establish strict pollution control measures to protect citizens' health and the environment.
3. The organization's mission is to promote sustainable practices and implement pollution control measures to prevent environmental degradation.
8. Waste management strategies.
Waste management strategies.
Explanation: methods or policies implemented to manage, minimize, or eliminate waste generation from various sources, such as household, industrial, or agricultural activities.
Synonyms: waste reduction initiatives, recycling programs, environmental conservation strategies.
Example sentences. 1. The company's goal is to implement waste management strategies to reduce its environmental impact.
2. Governments must establish effective waste management strategies to prevent pollution and protect public health.
3. The organization's mission is to promote sustainable practices and implement waste management strategies to preserve natural resources.
9. Conservation efforts.
Conservation efforts.
Explanation: Actions or initiatives taken to protect, preserve, or restore ecosystems, species, or natural habitats for future generations.
Synonyms: environmental conservation efforts, biodiversity preservation initiatives, ecosystem protection measures.
Example sentences.
1. The organization's goal is to promote conservation efforts to protect endangered species and preserve natural habitats.
2. Governments must establish effective conservation efforts to prevent ecosystem degradation and biodiversity loss.
3. The company's mission is to implement conservation efforts to reduce its environmental impact and promote sustainable practices.
10. Biodiversity loss prevention.
Biodiversity loss prevention.
Explanation: efforts or strategies implemented to prevent, minimize, or reverse the decline of species, ecosystems, or natural habitats due to human activities or environmental degradation.
Synonyms: species preservation initiatives, ecosystem protection measures, natural resource conservation efforts. Example sentences.
1. The organization's goal is to promote biodiversity loss prevention by preserving natural habitats and protecting endangered species.
2. Governments must establish effective biodiversity loss prevention strategies to prevent ecosystem degradation and species extinction.
3. The company's mission is to implement biodiversity loss prevention measures to reduce its environmental impact and promote sustainable practices.
Environmental impact.
1. Carbon footprint reduction.
Carbon footprint reduction.
Explanation: the process of minimizing or reducing the amount of greenhouse gases emitted by an individual, organization, or country, primarily through energy-efficient practices and reduced consumption.
Synonyms: greenhouse gas reduction initiatives, emissions minimization strategies, environmental impact mitigation.
Example sentences.
1. To reduce our carbon footprint, we must adopt sustainable practices such as using public transport and reducing meat consumption. Individual level.
2. The company is committed to reducing its carbon footprint by implementing energy-efficient measures and investing in renewable energy sources. Organizational level.
3. Reducing our carbon footprint requires a combination of individual actions and government policies.
2. Greenhouse gas emissions minimization.
Greenhouse gas emissions minimization.
Explanation: strategies or technologies implemented to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases released into the atmosphere, primarily carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide.
Synonyms: emissions reduction initiatives, carbon footprint minimization, environmental protection measures.
Example sentences.
1. The government's goal is to minimize greenhouse gas emissions through a combination of regulations and incentives for renewable energy development.
2. Minimizing greenhouse gas emissions requires a shift from fossil fuels to clean energy sources like solar and wind power.
3. Implement greenhouse gas emissions minimization strategies can help mitigate the impact of climate change.
3. Ecosystem disruption mitigation.
Ecosystem disruption mitigation.
Explanation. Efforts to reduce or prevent damage to ecosystems, including habitats, species, and natural processes caused by human activities or environmental degradation.
Synonyms: ecological disruption prevention, environmental protection measures, biodiversity conservation initiatives.
Example sentences.
1. To mitigate ecosystem disruption, we must adopt sustainable practices and protect natural habitats.
2. The organization's goal is to prevent ecosystem disruption through conservation efforts and habitat restoration projects.
3. Mitigating ecosystem disruption requires a combination of individual actions, government policies, and international cooperation. Out or works.
4. Natural resource depletion prevention.
Natural resource depletion prevention.
Explanation. Strategies or technologies implemented to reduce or prevent the overexploitation or degradation of natural resources, such as water, soil, or minerals.
Synonyms: environmental conservation efforts, resource management initiatives, sustainable development strategies.
Example sentences.
1. To prevent natural resource depletion, we must adopt sustainable practices and invest in renewable energy sources.
2. The government's goal is to manage natural resources sustainably through regulations and incentives for responsible extraction and use.
3. Preventing natural resource depletion requires a combination of individual actions, government policies, and international cooperation.
5. Toxic substance contamination avoidance.
Toxic substance contamination avoidance.
Explanation: efforts to reduce or prevent the release of toxic substances into the environment, primarily through changes in production processes or waste management practices.
Synonyms: pollution prevention initiatives, environmental protection measures, hazardous substance minimization.
Example sentences.
1. To avoid toxic substance contamination, we must adopt sustainable production practices and implement effective waste management systems.
2. The organization's goal is to minimize toxic substance release through process improvements and responsible waste disposal.
3. Avoiding toxic substance contamination requires a combination of individual actions, government policies, and international cooperation.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more episodes.